Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will today give an update on progress made by the inquiry so far. The Commission was granted a final extension to complete its work by March next year. It's been reported that the Commission's work actually cost taxpayers in the region of 700 million rand since it began. For more on the political ramifications of where we find ourselves, let's bring in Dr Sam Koma. He's got insight into how many, political figures really have made an appearance and what we should make of that. The ANC's Nomvula Mokonyane, for instance, Musebenzi Zwane, Pravin Gordhan, former President Jacob Zuma are just some of those faces we've seen appear on the Commission so far. Dr. Koma, thanks very much for your time and welcome to the AM report. There's so much to consider here, and I'm hoping we'll be able to at least get through the thrust or the crux of what the Commission was about. But let me start as an introduction to our conversation by getting your sense of whether or not we should be satisfied with how much the Commission has been able to achieve thus far.
Yes, of course, the Commission was supposed to have concluded its work sometime last year. They had to ask the High Court to have extension of the duration of the Commission. That tells us that the amount of work that they had to go through is quite huge, given the lineup of witnesses, the evidence that has been adduced before the Commission, and also outstanding witnesses that are yet to appear before the Commission. But now we know that the Commission is going to conclude its work in March 2021. But so far, I'll give them a positive affirmation that they've managed to hold public representatives accountable. Of course, those who served in the National Executive before and those who are currently serving in the National Executive. We've seen appearance of former ministers such as Desmond Royan, who had to give account of how he got appointed and also what happened when he got into the National Treasury within that 4 days. But also, we had Nhlanhla Nene, who appeared before the Commission, and subsequent to that, he lost his cabinet post because of the testimony that he provided or adduced before the Commission, and also his relationship or his meetings with the Gupta brothers. So that also came through the work of the Commission. But I will say that if our criminal justice institutions were working very well, they were effective and resourced, your SAPS, the Hawks, and the National Prosecuting Authority, we will not have ended up with a judicial commission of inquiry. So that tells us that our constitutional democracy is not working very well, because these are institutions set up by the Constitution, mandated to carry out their work without fear, favor, or prejudice. But you can see that even through the Commission, we now know that some former NPA officials appear to have been captured by private interests. Some officials of the Crime Intelligence Unit who appeared before the Commission also appeared to have been captured, and also some within the Hawks. Yeah. So this is not healthy democratic order at this stage, because we know that commissions of inquiry come at a cost to the taxpayers.
Absolutely.
And once they get their work, what then becomes, we've seen very little if you refer to the Arms Deal Commission and other previous commissions of inquiry.
Right. And, this is where I was hoping we'll go. We've kind of been here before in some form or the other. I mean, you've already mentioned a few commissions that have been in our history already, our recent history, might I add. Given that, can we really place our trust in this particular commission to hold these political figures accountable for what they may have done or may have not done that resulted in getting us where we are as a country?
Yeah, Ayanda, you remember already this year, we have seen that once some witnesses appear before the Commission, subsequent to that, the Hawks and also NPA move. That tells you that there were cases that the NPA and the Hawks, they were investigating. But we know that the NPA was under-resourced. It is still under-resourced even this day. And now there is cooperation between investigators of the Commission and investigators of the NPA. And we've seen some forward movement in the unraveling of some of the outstanding cases through the arrests, which were executed by the Hawks assisted by other agencies in terms of witnesses that have appeared before the commission. The cases of what happened in the Free State, for example, and also the Vusasa scandal, and also other major scandals that are part of the revelations coming out of the commission. So the commission has done very well in assisting the crime intelligence institutions and assisting the public to know the truth, but also to get to the bottom of what happened between 2009 and this day. So, of course, it's an expensive exercise. As I said, ideally, in a democratic order, you need effective, assertive, resourced criminal justice institutions to carry out their constitutional duties. So we don't have an option. We are stuck with the commission, but it is too late for any individual to try to sabotage or weaken the work of the commission because, as I said, by end of March 2021, the report will be concluded and also furnished to the president. And we know through the style of the leadership of the president, members of the public will have access to this commission's report, just like the Nugent report, the report on the state security, and also other reports.
Yeah, but the difference between this commission and many others is that it really feels like the scope of this inquiry might have perhaps been a bit too broad, and that comes at the risk of actually lessening the impact of the work done by the inquiry, for lack of a better term. I wonder whether even at this late stage, there's a conversation to be had about, in the construction process of this report, there's a streamlining of what it is exactly we're focusing on in an effort to ensure that, we don't have what feels like a sort of, open mind that doesn't necessarily help us get to the crux of holding people accountable. Because, again, for the most part, because so much information has been shared, it becomes incredibly difficult to follow the narrative, so to speak, and find specific individuals responsible for specific misdemeanors.
Yes, I agree with you, Ayanda. At the outset, the former public protector, when she made a recommendation for the instituting of an independent judicial commission, was to look specifically into the affairs of ESCOM. But then some within the national executive, because remember, the national executive was factionalized, there were divisions there, also within the ranks of the ANC. So some said, no, this state capture, why can't we date it back to before 1994? Some, they said, no, from 1994 till this day. So they had to politically manage how they cater for the interest of both factions. Then there was a compromise to say, let's broaden the terms of reference. Let's broaden the scope of this particular commission to look at other SOEs, to also look at other organs of state, not necessarily focusing on the ESCOM issue. But it was meant, according to the recommendation which was made by the former public protector, to zoom into ESCOM issues. But then now we have ended up with a broadened scope of the work of the commission. But I'm saying it is good that we're going through this particular process because state capture largely has permeated through the different organs of state. So
right.
It's good that we're going through this particular process.
Given that then, do we imagine a future with a sustained form of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry? It is clearly a needed intervention in our, call it, political ecosystem. It's certainly making some form of contribution. There's an acknowledgement that there is a need for a platform like that, given what we know and what we're trying to understand. So with that in the backdrop, do we imagine the inquiry essentially being around for an indefinite period, doing this type of work?
No, we no longer need any type of investigation or inquiry in the form of a commission of inquiry. I think this should be the end, because the commission has revealed to us to say, yes, your observations were correct, that some of these institutions set up by the Constitution, the legislative authorities, Parliament, the provincial legislatures, your municipal councils, the boards of SOEs were weakened and ineffective and also not playing their effective oversight role. So beyond this state capture commission, we do not need any other intervention in the form of a commission of inquiry holding public officials and public representatives accountable. We need decisive, bold, and effective institutions that have been established as per our constitution to be playing this particular oversight role, holding public officials accountable, taking decisive actions in the event there is abuse of authority, misuse of public resources, misuse of public funds, and all of that. So we need leadership.
Right, right. And so as we count down to March next year, Dr. Koma, speak to me about the unfinished business of the inquiry. One of the loose ends, if you like, has to do with the former President Jacob Zuma. There's still really no telling about what his next move will be, despite how central he is to, us understanding essentially where the years gone by have actually gone. How does the commission hold on to its political credibility when there are still these loose ends so close to it having to, deliver this final report?
Yes, thanks. Of course, we know that the terms of reference of the commission largely center around the former president of the Republic, Jacob Zuma. We now know through the testimonies and evidence and witnesses that have appeared before the commission that he seems to be implicated in a number of issues that could be characterized as wrongdoing. But we know that the commission can conclude its report without having had Jacob Zuma giving his side of the story. Because now it's a matter that is sub judice. He has gone to High Court. The commission has gone to the Constitutional Court. We are likely to have an outcome, say by early Jan or Feb, whether the Constitutional Court will rule to compel Jacob Zuma to appear before the commission and also give testimony. Because we know that through his lawyer, he said he may appear and not express himself or give account of what happened. But I'm saying the commission can still conclude its work in the absence of testimony coming from the former president.
I wonder what
that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I wonder how many people will accept the credibility of the commission without the voice of the individual who is said to be so central to a lot of what's been happening throughout many state organs in the past few years. But that's all the time we have for this incredibly interesting conversation. Thanks very much for your take. We'll continue unpacking it for you throughout the course of the morning. Dr. Sam Koma is the head of research at Milpark Business School. What do you make of that? Do you imagine a context where the State Capture Commission of Inquiry is in fact able to give a finalized report without the voice of a man who's said to have been central to state capture? Would love your take on this at Newsroom 405.